In the summer of 2014, 4 American girls set off on what they thought would be the adventure of a lifetime, a backpacking trip through Eastern Europe. They had carefully planned their itinerary, which included stops in Poland, Slovakia, and Hungary, before making their way to Ukraine. Little did they know that their journey would turn into a deadly nightmare that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The girls, all in their early 20s, were typical college students, carefree, naive, and full of youthful optimism. They had saved up for months to fund their trip, and had even secured a few part-time jobs to supplement their travel budget. They were excited to experience new cultures, taste exotic foods, and explore new horizons. But what they did not anticipate was the political turmoil that was brewing in Ukraine at the time, which would soon escalate into a full-blown war. Chapter 1: Entering Ukraine. The girls arrived in Ukraine in early August, full of excitement and anticipation. They had booked a hostel in the capital city of Kiev, and spent their first few days exploring the city's landmarks and attractions. But the mood soon turned somber when they saw the thousands of protesters who had gathered in the central square to demand political reform. The girls were shocked to see the level of police brutality that was being unleashed on the protesters, and the escalating tensions made them uneasy. Chapter 2: The First Signs of Danger. As the days went by, the girls began to notice more signs of danger. There were armed soldiers patrolling the streets, and reports of violent clashes between protesters and police were becoming more frequent. The hostel owner warned them to stay away from the central square and to avoid any political demonstrations. But the girls were determined to experience the local culture and refused to let the political situation dampen their spirits. Chapter 3: Heading to the East. Their next destination was the eastern city of Donetsk, which was known for its beautiful architecture and rich history. But as they boarded the train to Donetsk, they noticed a heavy military presence at the station. They were stopped by soldiers who demanded to see their passports and visas, and the girls began to feel a growing sense of unease. But they managed to convince the soldiers that they were just tourists and were allowed to board the train. Chapter 4: Arrival in Donetsk. When they arrived in Donetsk, they were greeted by a city that was almost unrecognizable from the one they had seen in the travel brochures. The streets were deserted, and the buildings were pockmarked with bullet holes. The locals looked fearful and agitated, and the girls could sense that something was seriously wrong. They checked into a hotel and decided to explore the city despite the obvious signs of danger. Chapter 5: Caught in the Crossfire. Their sense of adventure quickly turned into a nightmare when they were caught in the crossfire between Ukrainian troops and pro-Russian separatists. Bullets whizzed past their heads as they frantically searched for cover. They could hear explosions in the distance, and the sound of gunfire echoed through the streets. They were terrified and had no idea what to do. They huddled together in a dark alleyway, praying that they would survive the night. Chapter 6: Taken Hostage. Their luck ran out when they were taken hostage by a group of armed separatists. They were blindfolded and driven to an undisclosed location, where they were interrogated and threatened with violence. The girls were terrified and had no idea what was going to happen to them. They tried to remain calm and composed, but inside they were screaming for help. Chapter 7: A Narrow Escape. The girls saw their opportunity and bolted towards the door. They ran as fast as they could, dodging bullets and explosions, until they stumbled upon a hidden underground tunnel. They scrambled inside and made their way through the darkness, hoping that it would lead them to safety. They could hear the sound of pursuit behind them, but they kept running, fueled by fear and adrenaline. Chapter 8: A Desperate Plan. After hours of wandering through the underground tunnel, the girls emerged on the outskirts of the city. They were exhausted and disoriented, but they knew that they had to keep moving if they wanted to survive. They hatched a desperate plan to make their way to the nearest U.S. embassy, which was over 500 miles away. They had no money, no food, and no transportation, but they refused to give up. Chapter 9: A Journey of Survival. The journey was grueling. and the girls had to overcome numerous obstacles along the way. They hitchhiked on trucks, walked for miles on foot, and even stole food from local markets to stay alive. They encountered dangers at every turn, from roving gangs of bandits to landmines and artillery fire. But they refused to give up, driven by the will to survive and the hope of reaching safety. Chapter 10: A Homecoming of Trauma. After several weeks of travel, the girls finally made it to the U.S. Embassy, where they were rescued by U.S. Marines. They were flown back to the United States, but their ordeal was far from over. They had witnessed unspeakable horrors, experienced intense trauma, and had been pushed to the brink of their sanity. Upon returning to the States, they were admitted to a psychiatric hospital, where they received extensive therapy and treatment for PTSD. Chapter 11: A New Reality. The girls' lives were forever changed by their experience in Ukraine. They had seen the worst of humanity and had been pushed to their limits. They struggled to adapt to their new reality, haunted by nightmares, flashbacks, and crippling anxiety. They could no longer take their safety for granted, and they were forced to confront the harsh realities of a world torn apart by war and conflict. Chapter 12: Lessons Learned. Despite the trauma, the girls emerged from their experience with a newfound sense of strength and resilience. They had learned the hard way that life is precious and that safety is never guaranteed. They had seen the power of human kindness in the face of adversity and had been inspired by the courage of those who had stood up for what they believed in. They had gained a new appreciation for the freedoms and liberties that they had always taken for granted. Chapter 13: A Message of Hope. The girls wanted their story to be a message of hope to others. They wanted to inspire people to stand up for what they believe in, to fight for justice and freedom, and to never give up in the face of adversity. They wanted to remind people that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope, and that kindness and compassion can overcome even the greatest of evils. Chapter 14: The Legacy of the Four. The legacy of the 4 American girls who journeyed to Ukraine in 2014 lives on, inspiring others to stand up for what they believe in and to never give up in the face of adversity. Their story is a testament to the power of human resilience and the triumph of the human spirit. They may have lost their innocence in the midst of war, but they gained a sense of purpose and a determination to make a difference in the world. Chapter 15: A Call to Action. The story of the 4 American girls who journeyed to Ukraine in 2014 is a call to action for all of us. We must not turn a blind eye to the injustices and atrocities that are happening around the world. We must stand up for what is right, even when it is difficult or dangerous. We must never take our safety and security for granted, and we must do everything in our power to create a better world for ourselves and for future generations. In conclusion, the journey of the 4 American girls to Ukraine in 2014 was a deadly, terrifying, and ultimately transformative experience. They witnessed the horrors of war firsthand, experienced intense trauma, and were forced to confront the harsh realities of a world torn apart by conflict. But despite the odds, they managed to survive and emerge stronger, determined to make a difference in the world. Their story is a testament to the power of human resilience, the triumph of the human spirit, and the importance of standing up for what is right, even in the face of overwhelming adversity.